Well, welcome to the 700 Club. The people want the fall of Hamas. That's what Gazans are chanting as anti-Hamas protests continue for the third day.
The protests have spread to several cities in Gaza, and they could mark a turning point in the nearly 18-month war. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Protests in Gaza have spread to the capital, Gaza City, and the former Hamas stronghold of Khan Yunis. Some of it aimed directly at Hamas for making its citizens endure this terrible, now 17-month-long war. In Gaza City, protesters shouted, "Out, out, Hamas, get out." The protest started Tuesday in Bet Lahia and continued on Wednesday with chants of, "The people want the fall of Hamas." Though some question if the protests are genuine or simply being allowed by Hamas for its own reasons, since freedom of speech has not existed in Gaza under Hamas. Yet this Gazan used the media to talk straight to the terror group.
We have had enough and we do not want you. We are done. We gave you enough chances, but you let us down like all people in this world. We want a decent life for us and our children.
Well, I think this is like the best news that I've heard in a very, very long time.
IDF reserve soldier Yair Pinto told CBN's Raj Nir the unprecedented protests may signal a turning point.
Hamas has been keeping the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip as hostages, basically using them as human shields, brainwashing the population for more than 20 years. And finally, we see them stand up and speak against this terrorist organization, saying, we had enough of war, we had enough of destruction.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz encouraged the people of Gaza to stand up to Hamas.
Learn from the residents of Bet Lahia. Like them, you too should demand the removal of Hamas from Gaza and the immediate release of all Israeli hostages. That is the only way to stop the war.
For the first time since October 7th, a recent poll shows a significant drop of support for Hamas's deadly attack on Israel from 57% to 39%. At the Knesset, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu added another threat to the terror group.
And I say to Hamas, this includes seizing territory, and this includes other things that I will not list here.
On the eve of a major conference on anti-Semitism, Israeli President Isaac Herzog addressed the alarming surge in global anti-Semitism since October 7th and called on Jewish communities and their allies to take action.
I say to you, dear leaders and activists, fight. Fight and don't give up. To my Jewish brothers and sisters who are here and all over the world, I say, I understand your concerns for the safety of your communities and for the future of your children, and I understand your pain and outrage, and I understand your concern for Jewish life. I also understand and I share your worries in this urgent battle. The State of Israel is your full partner, and we are all in this battle.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, let's pray for Hamas to be overthrown, for the hostages to finally be released, for the war to finally end. Let's also pray this spreads to Lebanon. There's no reason for Hezbollah to essentially control southern Lebanon. I remember visiting Beirut. I was just 12 years old, so back in the 1960s. Then it was known as the jewel of the Mediterranean. It was an incredibly prosperous city. All of that gone when the PLO came in 1972, descended into civil war and anarchy, and then the sort of rival groups controlling different geographic areas, and then armed to the teeth to attack Israel. Wouldn't it be wonderful for Lebanon to once again be the jewel of the Mediterranean? And wouldn't it be wonderful if Iran had a change in government, and instead of putting all of their funds into arms and spreading terror around the Middle East, trying to build nuclear weapons, but they actually said, well, let's take care of our own people and let's become prosperous. That would be absolutely incredible. These would be wonderful things to see happen, and let's pray it in, that this would happen and happen soon. Well, in other news, a ranking Senate Republican is now calling for an investigation into the group chat that led to a security leak. Gary Lane has more on that story from our CBN newsroom. Gary?
Gordon, Senator Roger Wicker, who chairs the Senate Armed Services Committee, wants the Pentagon Inspector General to look into the secure chat where administration officials shared attack plans on terrorists in Yemen, including potentially classified details sent by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Wednesday, The Atlantic released a transcript of the chat with information that included the times of the attacks by American warplanes and drones. Senator Wicker said he would have wanted that information to be classified and, quote, if mistakes were made, they should be acknowledged. Secretary Hegseth says the chat did not include classified information.
There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information.
President Trump is standing by his team, including National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who accidentally included a reporter in on that chat. Well, Planned Parenthood, America's largest abortion provider, is facing challenges on a number of sides. The Trump administration, Congress, and the Supreme Court are all considering measures that could diminish the abortion giant's power. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson reports.
The Trump administration may soon freeze tens of millions of dollars in federal funding for groups providing abortions, including Planned Parenthood. As soon as this week, the Health and Human Services Department could announce a hold on more than $27 million in funds, a spokesperson told the Wall Street Journal. The department is reviewing grant recipients to make sure they comply with President Trump's executive orders and federal law. This year, the government was set to distribute $120 million in grants to organizations that deal with family planning.
This is good news. It's a good first step for defunding Planned Parenthood and taking actions to stop subsidizing abortion in our country. And when we look at what Planned Parenthood does every year in taking the lives of 400,000 unborn children in this country, that is the equivalent to the population of New Orleans.
Pro-life Congressman Chris Smith also supports the administration's plan to limit funds to Planned Parenthood. He's also seeking to help crisis pregnancy centers. Earlier this week, he introduced a bill to protect the more than 2,700 CPCs.
Some state governments, like my own state of New Jersey, and some lawmakers seek to discriminate against pregnancy care centers by violating fundamental conscience rights to compel complicity in abortion.
The Let Pregnancy Care Centers Serve Act protects the centers from retaliation for refusing to promote abortion.
Our Attorney General, Letitia James, she tried to shut down any pro-life pregnancy center from being listed on a Google search. So can you imagine the evil of someone that would do that?
This group says pregnancy resource centers have saved countless lives.
And when they do that, Planned Parenthood, the largest provider of abortion in the nation, loses profits and potential donors. As we know, pro-abortion government officials in several states are working side by side with Planned Parenthood to shut down the centers.
Meanwhile, next week, the U.S. Supreme Court will consider whether South Carolina can block Planned Parenthood from receiving Medicaid dollars.
South Carolina, supported by the U.S. government, agrees that states must have the authority to steward limited Medicaid resources toward providers that align with their values and serve their citizens' true healthcare needs.
The ruling is expected to be handed down this summer. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Gordon, shifting the thought and the thinking from the abortion providers to the care centers.
Well, I hope the thought turns to the mothers. And can we have a culture that celebrates motherhood, that says we're with you in this pregnancy. We want to provide for you. We want to support you and your child to be. We want all of these things, and because we want a vibrant culture. When you look at the founder of Planned Parenthood, she had a famous interview with the New York Times all the way back in the 1920s. And you can say a whole lot in an interview, and she certainly did. But in that, she revealed that she was into eugenics, that she somehow thought that we could biologically engineer a better culture if we eliminate undesirables. And she literally called it weeding out. And when you look at Planned Parenthood and the neighborhoods where you see those clinics, it's all focused on low-income neighborhoods. This needs to be really exposed and called for what it is. It's about time, instead of persecuting crisis pregnancy centers, which we saw a lot of over the last 4 years, to helping them to say, no, you're doing really good work and you're helping our future. Realize children are the future. And if you're a society that says we don't want children, well, then you're a society that says we don't want a future. So how can we as a culture, let's encourage mothers. And in that encouragement, let it be very tangible. And how do we support them and support their children as they grow up? That's a wonderful thing to do. And let's always encourage that.